Hey, it's Ed. Welcome to Lessons from My Mentor. This one, actually not from one of my formal business mentors. This one's from my mom, which, you know, was a mentor for sure as well, just not a formal contracted member, like most of the lessons that I share with you. And hers was on thank you cards. And whenever we were kids and people would give us something, whether it was a birthday, Christmas, or maybe it was just a guest that came to the house and they would bring a bag of candy for the kids, before we were allowed to play with that toy, eat that candy, whatever it was, we had to write a thank you note, which was so painful. It seemed like back in the day, like, oh, got to write a thank you note. But it gave us this discipline to be thankful, to be grateful, and acknowledge that with other people. So I don't think anyone needs convincing that we should write thank you cards, but we don't by and large do it on a regular basis. And with the advent of technologies, it might be a quick text thank you or an email or email cards, remember those, but they're not as impactful as actual having something in your hand. Like I keep my thank you cards over here. I've got a stack of them. These are like kind of fancy ones. They're sort of like embroidered. I've got my generic ones that I use, and then I have just the regular ones that say thank you on it. And so I always have them nearby and try to remember to write them. And let me share with you just a couple examples. And I do this all the time. Although my thank you card writing's gone down, now I'm a single proprietor person, company. So I don't do them quite as often as I would have in the past. But let me give you some examples in case you need that convincing, that extra little push to actually do handwritten, hand mailed notes. So yeah, in my mind, tons of ideas. It's just like pulling down. Okay, one of them, Nurse Cratchit. There was this nurse. She was the CNO of one of our hospitals when I was at Texas Health. And no one wanted to be around her. She was just mean. I was just like a curmudgeon, Whenever we'd go out to their hospital, to have meetings or what have you, it was always like, oh, we got to watch out for Nurse Cratchit. We don't want to kind of avoid her. And so keep that in mind as I tell you this story. So every year, it's probably like this similarly in other communities, but in Dallas, Fort Worth, they have this contest called the top 100 nurses. And so there's a lot of health systems in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's like three or four big ones. So you could figure on any given year, about 25 or 30 of those nurses that won were from Texas Health. And so what I would do is they would publish it, right? Congratulations to all these nurses. And so over the course of a week, I would write down their names and send them thank you cards and just random. I didn't know most of them, but I knew which hospital they worked at. So I would just be able to put down their name and put Texas Health Plano or where have you, and it would get to them. And they would get like a hard copy thank you card, a few days later. So one day we were at an executive meeting, like all the leaders from the Texas Health coming together. And so it's kind of like the reception time is right before the meeting started. Everyone's just kind of mingling. And all of a sudden I look up, I could hear Nurse Cratchit coming for me. I mean, and you just heard her, she had that sort of presence where it's like boom, 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 boom. And I was like avoiding eye contact. I shouldn't have been that way, but I was. It's kind of like avoiding eye contact. And I realized she's coming for me. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what did my team do? What did we do? What happened? What got screwed up? And I was just ready for it. So I braced myself almost like, I was going to get in a fight or something. I was like, and she came really close to me and she said, Ed, I've served here for 23 years and you're the first person that ever gave me a thank you card. And then she started crying. I mean, it was pretty intense. So you never know what effect, to you, it might be, oh, okay, take me a minute. So I'm writing it down. But to other people, it could save their life. They're down the dumps, it could encourage them. It could keep them from quitting. It could help them like go from good to great. It could just help reinforce the great culture of your organization. You never know. So why not do it? So when I was courting my now wife, she also served at Texas Health, and she was a nurse leader there. And she was asking around, like, hey, I'm starting to date, Edmar. I didn't work there anymore, but everyone knew me, right? Because I'd been there as a CIO for 8 years. So a lot of people knew me. And so she was sort of feeling me out in terms of with her peer group, like, hey, what was he like? Was he legit? Was he real? Was it anything to be concerned about? Just like most people would do, like, hey, I'm starting to date this person. And so one of her colleagues said, hey, come here. And she took her to our office. And on the bulletin board in her office was a thank you card I had sent her a couple of years prior to that. And she was one of those top 100 nurses. And I did it every year, for 8 years. So I probably hit, couple, 300 nurses. And that spoke volumes to Simran and her peer group, like, oh, wow, he's legit. So that helped me, like, who would have thought when I wrote it, that would be one of the things that helps me, like, connect with my future wife. So you never know about the impact that these cards will have on people. The other example I give you is in the Army. So I was in the Army Reserves for like 15 years. I did some active duty time and training time, but by and large, I was a reservist. And so, we all had our own careers plus our Army career. And I just had the same mentality. And I remember writing thank you cards so I was a platoon leader at the time. So I was probably a second or first lieutenant. In a platoon, you have four basically direct reports. You have your platoon sergeant, and then 3 or 4 squad leaders, depending on the size and structure of your company or platoon. And I sent them all thank you cards, had their home address, sent them thank you cards. And I had the same sort of experience with one of them. Because, in the Army, you're not getting a thank you card. It's your job. You put on the uniform, it's your job. So the culture it's a great culture. So don't take anything negative, but it's just not very touchy-feely. And here I was, sending a thank you card. But I mean, the loyalty that emboldened to me was amazing. And it just helped us grow tighter. So I tried to do that with my direct reports, for a long time in my career. Send them a thank you card every once in a while. So I had a goal. I sent out 5 thank you cards a week. And so sometimes I would think about my direct reports, and sometimes I would think about my peer group. Now imagine that. Did you ever get a thank you card from your peer group? So let's say you're a CIO watching this. Is an HR person ever given you a thank you card? The CFO saying thank you with a thank you card? Probably not. So do it, because they need it just as much as you do. Everyone loves to be thanked. I mean, I know we get paid and all that kind of stuff, and it's just our job, but that's a bunch of BS too. We all have an innate need to be appreciated, and it's a simple task, but it's sometimes can be better than a public thing. Not everyone's comfortable with a public thing, so maybe a written thing is something more private and quiet for them. It's just something that's between the two of you. So I would just go through this sort of list in my mind. I don't know that I had it written out, but my direct reports, my peer group, my boss. Then I would go to the next level, and you just do 5 a week. But in a year, that's 250 thank you cards. So you're really sowing seeds of goodness, of encouragement, of team, of culture. So there's no downside to it. It just takes a little energy. And you know what I did? I just did it. I just took those cards a lot of times with me. And sometimes you have to go to a meeting that you really don't need to be there or shouldn't be there, but you are there. And it's like, just do it during the meeting. It doesn't, if you're don't have to be that engaged during the meeting, it could be like multitasking and writing some cards. So those are some reasons to do it. I think I gave you 3, examples of how it impacted people. And again, I shared with you sort of the methodology. Just have a stack of cards with you at all times. They don't have to be fancy. They don't have to be, have your monogram on it. And think about 5 people and send them cards. I'll just leave you with this. When I instructed Chime Boot Camp, one of the things I would have everyone do is write a thank you note. And when I taught them this part, like I'm sharing with you, I would say, I bet there's someone that's coming to your mind right now right now, as I talk about writing thank you cards, someone's come to your mind that you should send a card to. And so we handed out cards. So I had them all available, handed out cards, and they were instructed. We took time. We paused the class for 5 minutes, gave them 5 minutes. It only takes a minute, but gave them 5 minutes, write out cards. Some people asked for more cards, which is cool. And we gave it to them. And, the feedback from all that was tremendous. Like, wow, I reconnected with someone. I knew I should have done this and I didn't do it. I didn't take the time, and it felt good for them, but imagine how it felt good for them. So more than once, a week later in the mail, there's a card, and it's from one of the students from the boot camp. And I still have, if my camera was more mobile, I could show you in another drawer. I've got a drawer. I literally have a drawer full of hundreds of cards I've received. I don't ever throw them away. And it means a lot to me. So go write a card. Someone probably came to your mind and they should hear from you, and send them a card and try to incorporate that in your daily practice. Lesson from my mentor, my mommy mentor. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.